Welcome to India Hangout, beaming to you live from Mumbai. We're asking. Let me give you a quick context. You're able to watch this video today because you can access it freely. The question is, you may not be able to access this freely because for some reason tomorrow the government of India might just ban everything that goes on the internet, or at least stuff like this, which in some ways is questioning the government's movements. Let's try and understand this a little better. I've got some renowned experts with me. Nikhil Pava, founder of Media Nama, joins us from Delhi. Rajesh Charya, president of the Internet Service Provider of India, right here with me in Mumbai. Pawan Duggal, cyber law expert, also in Delhi, and Ayaz Memon, journalist right here again in Mumbai. So let me begin with you, Nikhil, since you've been following, and I know that you just put up a post on this subject as well. What the hell is going on?
So what it appears to me is that in response to the Kamlesh Vaswani case in the Supreme Court, where a gentleman called Kamlesh Vaswani submitted a list of about 850 plus sites for blocking, the government appears to have suo motu blocked access to all of these sites.
Right. Right. So the question is, why did they do it, Nikhil?
You have to ask them, Govind. I'm not the right person to ask about why they did it.
Yeah.
If you ask me, I think apart from child porn and revenge, I don't think anything should be blocked. Porn itself, as far and maybe the lawyers can help out here. I don't think porn itself is banned in India. Consumption of porn is not banned, but the distribution is.
Okay, so we'll come back to Pawan in a moment. Ayaz, first, what's your sense? Why is this happening?
Well, I think they seem to be kind of overreaching where the access to internet content is concerned. Obviously, child pornography is an issue worldwide, so that is understandable. But I think venturing out like this, what people do in their private homes and trying to, it seems to me to be an overreach by the government, and that's the worrying part. So this is just one more dimension to this, to do.
Rajesh, your association and the 250 active ISPs that are part of your association are the ones who bear the brunt of these continuing instructions, right? How does it work, and how strong are these orders that come to you?
No, the orders are coming nowadays very frequently, and that by technology-wise, we can block anything. What our licensor will say, we are totally governed with the licensor. We are the licensee; they are the licensor. Whatsoever coming to them, they are to us. We are accordingly implementing that and giving the compliance to our licensor that we have blocked that sites. What we are finding, and the problem what we are facing since now, when the private ISP has started, we are getting the instruction for blocking. For the unblocking, we are not finding any instructions, and some of the contents which has become irrelevant after a few days, after a few months. We are not able to remove that because we are not getting the advisory from the licensor.
Right.
Due to this, technology-wise, we are finding a quality problem because our access list is increasing and increasing day by day. And whenever the request is coming from the customer side, we are checking the complete access list. Then only the request is getting.
So it always sort of scans the negative list first and then goes hunting for the site that you actually key. So it's causing
the quality.
Okay. Nikhil, I think in your article you were saying that ISPs are sort of being more willing to sort of give in to the government's demands than perhaps they should.
Yeah, no, Govind, the problem is that the ISPs don't really have a choice. So the orders have been issued under Section 79(3)(b), which was challenged in the Supreme Court earlier. I mean, where the Supreme Court ruled earlier this year. And this is a safe harbor provision. It's meant to protect intermediaries like ISPs and websites from any liability for the content that is shared or posted on their networks. Now, ISPs, according to this order, have been asked to disable these URLs. ISPs
Which
themselves can't disable them, so they are blocking them. Whereas it's a responsibility of the websites themselves. Specific URLs. The other thing that's worth noting is that it's not specific URLs that they've asked for blocking. They've given entire websites for blocking. So that's an old problem. Even when you've got John Doe orders, when movies come out, they ask for entire sites to be blocked, not individual which might be infringing or which might be breaking the law. I mean, the weird thing is that some of the sites that have been blocked include a site called Live Leak, which is famous for road rage and dash cam videos, which
Okay.
are sometimes amusing if that's what you find amusing.
Right.
But also sites like collegehumor.com, which is a world famous site for humor. There's also, I mean, there's also a site called nonveggjokes.com. So I don't understand what kind of porn there might be on joke sites, but there doesn't seem
Right.
to be.
But Nikhil, I think what we are trying to understand is this fundamentally tenable or not? And if it is tenable in some way, then it could apply to anything, including what we are talking about right now, isn't it?
My reading of this from a Supreme Court judgment perspective, because Supreme Court had laid down, effectively they have explained what sort of reasonable restrictions can apply to free speech. They had said that these restrictions are essentially applicable uh, uh, when there is excitement to violence or there is some sort of an incitement to action that takes
Right.
place,
Right.
not even advocacy. So the Supreme Court had said that when there is a clear and present danger, that is when these restrictions should apply. In this case, there is clearly no clear and present danger. And this is specifically applicable to Section 79(3)(b). So
Right.
I'm not sure about how they've implemented this.
Right, and we are also obviously still trying to find out, while we also wait for Pawan Dugal to rejoin us, as to what triggered this particular move at this point of time. And, Rajesh, clause, right? So, one is the 79B, 3B. The second part, which the order says, is that according to the definition of morality and decency as given in the Article 19(2) Constitution.
Yeah.
So the Constitution has been sort of brought in or
Referred,
dragged
yeah.
into this.
Yeah.
So how much weightier does that make the case, if at all?
First of all, for us, nothing is weight, because the weight is that the DOT is ordering
Right,
us.
right. You have no choice. Yeah.
So we don't have any choice. But what we want to say, what we want to recommend and suggest, we are an highway. ISP is nothing hosting any content
Sure.
into their network.
Sure.
We are an highway. We are connecting the content with the user. So now it's up to the content owner to decide and up to user to decide what to access, what not to access. What we have suggested in past also to the licensor, that why you are insisting all the ISP to block the website, why you are not advising the cable landing station or the international gateway, which are 4 or 5 into the country, advise to them to block those websites on and if you are finding that any content is available into the India, then you contact the data center where these sites are being hosted, where this content being hosted, and advise them according to the law that block this. Unnecessary, you are sending the advisory to all, making you and cry, and which is not possible also. Another thing, sometimes we get the reference of China, that in China the firewall is there, China is able to block YouTube, etc. But still the Chinese people are able to see. But there also
through VPNs, yeah.
through VPN, there also the government is taking the stand. The ISPs are not taking the stand. The government has to come with the central monitoring system,
Right.
which we are discussing from a very long time.
Right, but okay, so that's the sort of technical side
Yeah,
of it. But what
exactly.
I'm trying to understand is really, can this get worse? Can we be in a situation where every other day there is a new list, as you said
Are you
yourself?
finding that only one Kamlesh Vaswani is there? Thousands of Kamlesh Vaswani
Yeah.
will come,
Yeah.
and 1,000 will come with the 1,000 list. What will happen? The whole internet will get paralyzed.
Right.
So what
Yes.
is the core, Govind, I think really that needs to be understood. What is at the core of such a decision? So there is a case obviously, and there's somebody who
Yeah.
is an aggrieved petitioner who says this, and as you mentioned, there may be thousands of Kamlesh Vaswanis who will come with run into
1,000 and 1,000.
lakhs of sites. What is at the core? Is it that stifle your
Yeah, I mean, the government
choice?
obviously wanting to decide what you should see or not
I
see.
think that's where the problem, and I think that might actually, it might just be a little ham-handed, because through the VPN or whatever other model you can still access the sites. A lot of sites which may have nothing to do with porn will, like nonveggjokes.com, that gets clubbed into the same thing, and then there's no way to rescue yourself from that situation. So I think somewhere it seems to me to be a little ham-handed. There might be extreme cases. There's nothing seditious about it. If there is, yes, you can stop that site, or if there's child pornography, then zoom in and curtail those people. But otherwise, I think it's just too sweeping.
Nikhil, just to come back on that, I mean, like I think two questions we're trying to answer. I mean, the motivation for this, which we are obviously trying to get a better handle on. But more importantly, is this setting a trend and for sort of further infringement of my rights or your rights, particularly those of us who operate in the internet space?
So, Govind, I'll just go back to your earlier question about the constitutionality of it. Restrictions that I had mentioned that were laid down by the Supreme Court in terms of what are the instances blocked using 79(3)(b) were actually with respect to Article 19(2) and the Constitution of India itself.
Right.
So the Supreme Court said you can't just start blocking everything because the Constitution of India has regulations. You can only do it when there is a clear and present danger, and you can only do it when there is incitement. Even advocacy is fine according to them, right? So from a constitutional perspective, I think, and Mr. Dugal can comment more on that.
Right.
But the problem with this is that there was another meeting in September last year with the body called CRAC, again set up by the government to blocking of porn, which was again with respect to the same case which is which had been filed by Kamlesh Vaswani.
Okay, so we've got Pawan back. Nikhil, just hold your thoughts there. Pawan, so two questions we're trying to answer. So one is, of course, what is the motivation for this and to come through with such ferocity and urgency? That's one, which you may or may not be able to answer. I'm not looking necessarily for the legal technical answer. The second is that if indeed this has some legal weight in the manner that it's been pushed out now, could it be applied to just about anything that causes consternation to someone establishment at any point of time?
See, first and foremost, there are some fundamental striking features about this notification. The first is that the notification chooses to take an approach that was earlier not taken, and this was the approach pertaining to blocking of pornographic websites. You've seen cases earlier like savitabhabi.com being blocked. However, now for the first time, the government has chosen not to go through the blocking route, but has actually gone through the route of disablement of access. And that's been given under Section 79(3)(b) of the Information Technology Act 2000. Now, this is relying upon this particular section. However, the fact remains is that this notification does not even comply with the mandatory features and elements of 79(3)(b) of the Information Technology Act. Clearly, because under Section 79(3)(b), you are mandated as a government agency to notify that a particular information or data pertaining to a computer resource which is controlled by the intermediary is being used for the purposes of doing an illegal act. Now, what act that's being done by these 850 websites has clearly not been defined. Further, how these websites have been chosen, it's not crystal clear. The notification has chosen to rely upon decency and morality as grounds for the purposes of directing disablement. However, these are nothing but grounds which are part of reasonable restrictions on your fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression under Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution of India. So clearly, this has raised far more new questions and be legally tenable in a court of law as we go forward.
Right. So, Pawan, you're saying this is not legally tenable. So, what's next? I mean, I think now every citizen should rightfully fear that the government in some ways can start peeking into what she or he is doing, and if for whatever reason that person is found to be breaking some law, can arrest that person, right? That seems to be or would be the logical next step. So, what can we do to fight this?
I think it's crystal clear that this arbitrary application of the powers given under the Information Technology Act are clearly unwarranted. There are some intrinsic problems and there are some gray areas in the law which actually allows and encourages the State Department to do what it wants to do. For example, the way the term intermediary has been defined under Section 21(w) of the Information Technology Act is so to just about include any person who provides using a computer, an email account, or a mobile. So it's not just you and me who become intermediaries, everybody else who has access to services with respect to any particular electronic records becomes intermediaries. That being so, all intermediaries can be so directed by any governmental agency that any information or communication link which is hosted on a computer resource controlled by the intermediary could be used for the purposes of doing any illegal activity. And then in such a scenario, the intermediary would be required to disable or remove access to such information. Clearly, I think this is very, very
Right. Okay. So we've lost Pawan there for a moment, but we'll get him back. Nikhil, do you want to weigh in here? I mean, to really ask, sort of answer the first question. It's pawn today. What could and what should we be doing about it?
Answering that question, you immediately switch to Pawan. So if I can please be allowed to make my point,
Please.
without switching to someone else. This is the beginning, right? In the CRAC meeting that had taken place in September, the ISPs, the IMAI, and a bunch of associations had met, and they had discussed the possibility of implementing a filter at the gateway nodes in India. There are, I think, essentially 3 gateway nodes from where we get access to the internet. And the idea that was being discussed was putting a filter there. When that happened, so I'm looking at pawn as a ruse to start implementing a filter at the international gateways. And quite often, because of the secrecy of the blocking, we will never know what all has been blocked in this country.
Right.
Pawn is an easy excuse to start this process because, frankly, I don't see an MP standing up in parliament and contesting or trying to protect access to pawn, but it's a gateway.
Right. So Ayaz, you want to?
I think that's really fundamental too. I think he's touched the kind of sensitive nerve there. That yes, I mean nobody's going to object to pawn being
of course,
kind of curtailed or stifled or choked. But is this a precursor to other kind of meddling or interference with what you and I want to do on the internet? I think that's really the big concern.
Rajesh, I think you're saying that the track record shows that the number of such orders will only keep increasing.
No, number of will increase, and if you see just the objective of this case, that few days there was a rape case of a girl, a child girl, and that gentleman who has raped that girl has seen the porn movie, has taken the liquor, and then raped. When you are blocking the website or blocking any porn content, why you are not blocking the liquor then? Because the liquor is one of the case for getting excited. So you should do both the things. You should not pick and choose. That no, we will be picking up only the content where we have got the control. Because one, I already told, one Kamlesh Vaswani is done. Lot of Kamlesh Vaswani will come. Lot of things will happen. Lot of long list will come. Then after few days, a few months, a few years, we will be finding that this is the whitelist. That's all. You have to see only the whitelist. You have no right to.
Okay. Let me come back to you, Nikhil. Nikhil, what needs to be done next? I mean, if this has to be challenged or attacked, I mean, obviously there is a legal part of it, but what else does one do?
Well, I think we have to ask the government to give an explanation, but the only process is the legal one, and it's in the hands of the Supreme Court. The case is already in the Supreme Court, and we have to make sure that we don't create a slippery slope of any sort. But that's what it seems to be doing right now.
Okay.
I don't think else apart from outrage right now.
Okay, Ayaz?
Well, I just to kind of conclude my point of view, alarm bells that we must hear, where access to information on the net. I'm not in favor of pawn. That's not the point. But the point is,
that's why we're talking about this.
The accessibility to the internet cannot be denied, in such manner, unless there are compelling reasons like child pornography or seditious. I can understand, but if this is kind of a precursor to other checks and controls and whatever else, then I think that there are serious concerns.
We're in for some tough and troubled times. Rajesh, what should we be doing next? What's the way forward?
Being an ISP,
I
cannot comment anything. I have rules and regulations of our licensor. Whatsoever the government will say, show, we will show. Government say ban, block or disable, we have to disable that. But personally, if you take my view, education, awareness is the major things what we require.
Yeah.
We have to educate, we have to make the people aware. And I know that the internet people are very, you can say very smart, and if they want to see, they will see. And if you will stop them to see, they will definitely
Okay.
what in China is happening.
Right. Okay. So, Nikhil, last word from you.
I think, Govind, we need transparency above all. If something's been blocked, we need to know why. We need to know who gave the order. We need to know who the order was given to. We need to know who asked for it to be blocked. We need proper information out there so that we can hold our governments accountable for any sort of blocks. Apart from this, I'd also like to flag the point that there were instances when the hacker group Anonymous had attacked or had retrieved server logs from Reliance Communications that they were blocking some access to some content as well, which no one had known about. I mean, that's the allegation. So therefore, I think there must also be rules to ensure that private ISPs don't start blocking content without there being an order from a court. We need oversight because these guys control access to everything.
Right.
Whether it's the government or it's the ISPs, all of them should be transparent and on whose orders they're blocking.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that, Nikhil. So, Rajesh, do you want to respond to that? Are you unilaterally blocking sites on any?
No, not at all. We cannot block, because if we will be unilaterally blocking any website, and if anybody complains, the licensor will take us into the task. So whatsoever we are doing, we are exactly doing as per the advisory of the licensor.
Okay.
That they say that we have to block this, we have to block this.
Right. But what you said earlier was that you've got a long list of blocked
Yeah.
sites now which have never been unblocked. So,
Yeah.
that is something that
We have to see that.
Yeah.
We have to put some time limit.
Yeah.
That whatsoever the instruction is coming from the licensor, the life of that instruction will be for 3 months or 4 months or 6 months. After that, you can unblock that.
Right. Okay, gentlemen, we've run out of time. Thank you all for joining us on this very critical discussion, because we're not just discussing the blocking of 857 pawn sites, but something more fundamental, and that is whether your rights are being infringed upon. And this is a discussion or debate that will, of course, continue. Thanks for coming in.